and Close to Dead are not necessarily the views and opinions of those of the owners of D.T.M. Wicked Productions, LLC, and D.T.M. Wicked Radio.
Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining me. This is Selena Roane, your host of Close to Death, brought to you by D.T.M. Wicked Radio and powered by FEAR Paranormal. Tonight, I've been waiting to talk to this guy for so long because of the fact that one of the first books I ever popped open when I was 8 years old happened to be a book called Helter Skelter. Maybe that says why I'm a little off now. But without further ado, the director and writer of House at the End of the Drive and the owner of the Omen House, David Omen. How you doing, David?
I'm very good. I just want to set the record straight. I'm the producer, creator and co-writer of the film. Believe me, if I directed it, it would have been a little bit different film than what we ended up with. But I'm pleased to say I'm happy with what we ended up with. But I don't want to take credit away from the real director who directed this, David Worth. So,
okay, all right.
How are you doing?
I am doing really, really good. I have, like I said, had a fascination, just like my producer there, with Cielo Drive, and like when I was 8, I used to play library. That was the first book I popped open was Helter Skelter, and it was just like, ever since then, I've been like, how the hell can people do that? But before we get to that, can you tell the audience a little bit about David Omen and about the house?
Sure. Let's see. I live in a house that I built that's about 4 houses down the driveway from where the Sharon Tate house once stood, which was torn down 23 years ago in 1992. And I guess you could say I built myself a haunted house, which is not like going out and getting a kid and saying, all right, here's what you do to build yourself a haunted house. And the problem is in a lot of regards, every time I go on a different radio show, I have to tell the audience, look, whatever you heard and watched on television, please, don't even take a lot of that stuff. And I'm not talking about the evidence. Don't take away from those shows anything about me that would be, how should we say, less than favorable in so many words about the light that I'm being presented in by a certain nameless paraceleb who I don't like to even, bother even mentioning his name. But the show that I was on most recently was Ghost Adventures Aftershocks. And let's just say I've never had a more insidious type of a hatchet job performed on me by a company or an attempt to by a group of people like they did. The house, back to the story about the house. The house sits on a geomagnetic anomaly. And by that we mean that it sits on a crazy irradiated piece of land. And that's not just my house, but all the houses in the area, going out about 1,000 some odd, square feet, going out, radiating out from this area. All the houses have a certain, elevated EMF levels. What's different about my house is the way the house was constructed. There's a lot of steel, and by that I mean by steel I-beams that I have in the construction of the house. I have 4 steel I-beams supporting 2 floors. So underneath the 3rd level, there are 2 steel I-beams that are 20 feet long, running across the width of the house, connected by 3 steel columns that are connected into the concrete, into the foundation, going into the ground, tying into 13 caissons, which are reinforced again with steel and iron. So there's also the 2nd floor is also supported by another pair of steel I-beams, like in skyscraper construction. Those type of I-beams are supporting the 2nd level. So what you get is in between the 2nd and 3rd floor, you've got this gigantic kind of amplified EMF barrier. It's almost like it's almost like a gigantic magnetic field, because you have these 4 steel I-beams running parallel to one another, separated by about 12 feet, maybe 14 feet through the floor and whatnot, and they're all charged with magnetic energy, so that the 3rd level is really super, super elevated EMF levels, going into like 6,000 plus and 6,000 minus milligauss, where normally it's anywhere between 3 and 500 milligauss.
Wow.
It's crazy because lots of stuff happens on the 3rd level. We've had a crescent wrench that we left down there, And after 2 months of sitting down there just on top of the bar counter, the crescent wrenches become magnetized.
Oh, wow, that is
nuts. It's almost impossible, because what we found this by happenstance. We brought in a field compass, and I'm walking around with a good old-fashioned, military field compass, and it's not mechanical. It's mechanical. It's not digital, so it's working. We got near the countertop, and all of a sudden the thing started spinning around. We got near the crescent wrench. We found out that the crescent wrench was all magnetized. So
wow.
The stuff that happens in the third level is crazy. I've got video footage on YouTube of a 25-pound piece of butcher block moving on its own, literally swiveling on top of a television set and falling off the TV set on its own. And that's on YouTube.com/David Omen. And you can watch that for yourselves. It's crazy. And like I said, we've had lots of activity on the third floor. There's not to say that there isn't activity on the second floor. There is. We have crazy activity on all the floors. It's so crazy, but there's been a significant amount of recorded activity on the third level, which now I found out the reason why is because of this kind of the sandwich effect of these steel I-beams that are there. It's just insane.
It sounds kind of like when we were at the Stanley Hotel. It has the two big huge stairs on either side of it. It's sitting on pyrite and limestone, and then you have the fourth floor. It's just like a big huge circle of energy, and the fourth floor is nuts, and it's crazy active, and it just goes up from the bottom all the way around. It's like this huge circle of energy, and that's what it kind of sounds like is happening in your house, except for it's on every level. Just the third floor is like a really high magnetic level. That's crazy. So I've seen some of the videos, and I also saw the photograph, and actually the girl in the photograph for the Aftershocks episode, Scotty, is a friend of mine, and she was really interested in listening to the show tonight because, she was a part of the Aftershocks and things like that too. But that I haven't even gotten to watch. I didn't even really know that Ghost Adventures had a show called Aftershocks until she mentioned it after it had come on.
Really?
Yeah, I really didn't know that. That was all new to me, and I thought I knew all about the paranormal shows. So I'm going to have to go back and watch that. But I did see your video when you were burying yourself to say you have nothing to hide.
Right.
And I was
topless, by the way. I wasn't naked, even though people.
Okay.
It was the point that I was trying to make was the fact that I have nothing to hide. I'm naked and it's a figurative statement. It was trying to make a point saying, look, I have nothing to hide. I'm out here in the middle of the street at 12:30 on a Saturday night, coming back to basically vent because I'd heard so much crap spilled about me by one, nameless parasol trying to discredit me. And the irony is I gave their show the highest rated episode. They've had 9 seasons. And basically, I'll put it this way. Their show is about to be canceled and go off the air because, let's be honest here, after 9 seasons, most shows are just basically scrap metal anyways to the networks. There's a certain methodology that works in the numbers game of television. What the networks want is air it the following week. On a brand new season, they bumped this number 2 episode to play my episode again.
Wow.
So
well, see, I would have watched it too because I'm telling you,
on YouTube.
Good. Anytime I hear anything about that location, even if it's close to that location, and I didn't know that it was torn down in the 90s until that somebody just told. Because I told Scotty, I said I want to go to the ranch and I want to go to the house. And she goes, honey, they tore the house down, and David's house is right close, and he's got crazy activity. And I'm like, well, that's one of my bucket list things is to go to one of your investigations because anything that has to do with that, I'm just so fascinated with. And so Sharon Tate, let's get to that part of it. Sharon Tate, her spirit is said to be inside your home, or it comes to visit your home. Can you explain kind of that? Because that's so fascinating.
Well, as Barry Tappert said some years ago, the house has got this high electromagnetic field anomaly. And what he said was, originally, this is going back 9 years ago before any of these TV shows, he said that, look, he said, when we investigated the house that was where the Entity movie was based upon in Culver City, he said we registered measurements of 2,000 milligauss negative or positive, and then it would return to about 450 milligauss positive. Because in your house, the levels are always elevated. I said, so what does that mean? He goes, basically, when people come to your house, they can their energies, the spirits around them can manifest very, very easily without doing anything. I said, what do you mean? He goes, they can manifest. Spirits can just draw off the energy that's here in the house. And I said, oh, really? He goes, oh, yeah. He goes, that's what I theorize. He says, because there's no other explanation for it. He goes, you have after 12 months of coming here and 20-some-odd times, he said, the levels are always constantly high and elevated. And he says, so when I walk in the house, whoever's around me can basically jump off of my back, so to speak, and manifest. And the thing is that, yeah, her spirit's been, I mean, I saw the actual apparition of Jay Sebring some 10 years ago now in the middle of the night.
At the foot of your bed, right? Right?
Yeah, at the foot of my bed. I saw the apparition of Jay, and it was like, I didn't even recognize him at the time because it just didn't register to my mom was dying of cancer, and I thought it was somebody, you know, distant relative saying, hey, I'm here to tell you that your mom is dead. That not being the case, you know, he was turning towards the lot next door to my house, and then basically he evaporated. And like I said, we've had other people here who have said they saw a woman, they thought it was my girlfriend. She says she was walking, as a blonde-haired girl walking in a nightgown. I was like, yeah, but she goes, I turned to look and I saw her 1 minute, and then the next minute she was gone. I was like, oh, and described her to a T as being Sharon.
Wow.
So, and the other thing is, like I said, when they do the investigation, I try to explain this to people. You have a greater likelihood of being able to connect the dots if something happens to you on a paranormal level. I mean, we've caught EVPs here that are just mind-boggling because it has nothing to do with Sharon and Jay or the rest of them. It has to do with people's connected relatives or friends who have passed over.
Wow, that would be awesome.
And that's what I say. It's like if something happens, don't look at it as somebody that's, you know, you didn't know, that didn't know you, that's going to manifest and stretch across the barrier of time and space to say hello to you. It's probably going to be your mother, you know, somebody that you knew that's passed away. It could be your mom. In one case, we had this woman's father who came through, and it was interesting because right before we did the seance, which we do nowadays for like half an hour, and we do EVP sessions, this woman's father came through and said, let it go clearly, very softly, but as if it was right maybe an inch away from the microphone going, let it go, Mia. And she burst into tears right after. She goes, that's my father. And, you know, it was amazing because she goes, that's him. He goes, we realized that she says, I haven't been able to get over my father's death from 2.5 years ago. And, you know, I've been just in a turmoil state. I just can't go on. And it was kind of like her father saying, let it go and go on with your life. And at the end of the night, she said it was one of the most interesting experiences she's ever had, and it really helps her to get closure about her father.
Yeah, that would be very helpful, you know, if, like I did, I lost my mom, you know, like 11 years ago, and I struggled with it too, and I've always been, you know, wanting to hear her come through, you know, at one of my investigations even, or something like that. But I've gotten messages from her other ways, but not quite like that. So who knows? I think I might have to just come out to California my first time in my whole life and check that out. Now, what we're talking about, just in case, murder, it was grisly murders of 4 people and Sharon Tate. 5. And yeah, she was 5. Yeah, excuse me, 5.
She was 5, and she was 8.
And her baby. Yeah,
right.
And it's just, wow. I mean, the grisly scene that had to have been there. I'm sure that whoever saw had to have been Sharon Tate. I mean, she's got to be hanging around there. I mean, and it's so sad that, you know, she is seen there, and then Jay Sebring, and I just can't fathom the gruesome scene that was down the street from your house. And so the inspiration for the house at the end of the drive was obviously that. Can you tell us a little bit about the movie that's hopefully coming out really soon?